Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me today for this preseason pregame edition, and returning from wherever the heck he's been, Brian E. Roach, the host who doesn't like toast. What's going on, my friend?
This is actually too small for my head. I'm taking it back off.
Hey, man, how's it been? What you been up to, man?
Climbing mountains, running around all over the place, doing crazy stuff.
I see that, man. You've gone from being a runner to a bicyclist now. At least when your bike is performing up to snuff. Yeah. and
when it's not
hiking.
flat.
Yeah. Oh man. You know what? I just pulled out the bike yesterday. I gotta do so. Is there ever anything that you could do so it doesn't completely kill your posterior, which then runs all the way up every disc of your back?
Yes.
Just
you got to wear
bike.
padded pants, and you got to get a gel seat.
I have a gel seat. I don't have the cycling pants. I do not have the cycling pants. So since you've been gone, there's been things and stuff going on. Steelers have training camp, and now it's over.
There's a rainbow song running through my head.
It's that's like what is that? I want to say teeny bopper. That's like something my mom would say. But you know what I mean? It was like some
rainbow.
That's
know. Not teeny bopper.
Oh, or something. Since you've been gone is.
Since you've been gone is not the since you've been gone I'm talking about. That's a rock and roll song, man.
Oh man, I can't even tell you who sings it, but you know what it is. I've got the young daughter, so I listen to a lot of the hits channels or whatever, and the Kiss and everything like that. So I know that's probably not even like super new, but it's something she's into more than what you or I are probably into. And it's true. We eventually do become our parents when it comes to like Get Off My Lawn and the music and everything else that's our tastes. And it's also funny because myself and Zach, we talk about this all the time with like Star Wars and what else have they rebooted? Just about everything from at least my childhood, which is still kind of predates you a little bit. Hey, somebody got offended that we called you old too. I thought you wore that as a badge of honor. Yeah, thought you wore that as a badge of honor.
Hey, don't be offended. I'm glad I'm not dead.
It's always better. That's what my dad always says too. And you know what I mean? It's better to be 6 feet above the ground than 6 feet under. So got some news today. I don't even know where to start. Let's just say Deshaun Watson. We know what's going on with that now, or at least it seems like it. They haven't signed it yet. So that could still be in progress. But 11-game suspension, $5 million fine. It means he comes back, what is it, week 12, week 13, on the road at his former team, the Houston Texans, which doesn't sound deliberate at all. But there was a small piece of this puzzle where I want to find it and give the right attribution to it. Austin Gale, Deshaun Watson. I'll see if I can pull it up for all of the fine folks here.
I'm assuming this is the one where it informs us that he will start 3 games against the AFC North and miss 3 games against the AFC North.
You know what? The tweet is now gone. Let's see if Austin Gale had it up here once again, but there was maybe something was incorrect about it, but it had to do with tolling the contract, which we were talking about before.
Oh, okay.
So I will not be pulling it up. It looks like that's gone. See, the one time I try and be prepared and I have something like queued up and it disappears from the interwebs, and it's never truly ever gone, as we know, but oh well, I tried. Anyways, we were talking about this before. That means the Browns will have to pay the big almost $50 million a year, 46, 48, whatever it's at, starting next season. So they don't get to kick that contract for another year. That means Watson will toll as a player. He will be tenured another year as a player, so they don't get to avoid that. And we'll see where their cap space is next year. And it looks like, a split, as you said, 3 each in the division. I got to look at the games, but we know it's 1-1 with the Steelers, since the Steelers is early on week 3, Thursday Night Football, and then closing out the season, right? Week 18 now, which is that's goofy to say. I still can't get used to that. So
yeah,
we shall see. Maybe it might not even be the same quarterbacks playing in each of those 2 games on both sides of the football. And that's what we're going to talk about. Brian, you get a chance to see the last preseason game or any of the news notes, things that are going around, or you just out of cell phone reception entirely?
I was standing at about 7,000 feet of elevation during the preseason game, hiking up the side of a mountain in Oregon that overlooked this huge caldera crater of a volcano. And I was excited to see that, at least at the point in time I looked, it was 14-0 Steelers. So, I got updates as it went on. I watched the highlights later. But yeah, preseason's preseason.
Well, there's things and stuff that are going on in the preseason. One, namely, the Kenny Pickett situation.
Yeah.
And we found out today, as really was no guess. I'm not surprised by this, by the way things have gone. And now we see the progression of this, and I'll kick it even forward to next week. So we found out, for those who didn't hear already, Mitch Trubisky will start the game, and Kenny Pickett will be the number 2 in this game. And I think this one's more of a dress rehearsal. It would not shock me if next week, that in the 3rd preseason game, which is now the final one, they only play 3 altogether, that Kenny Pickett plays most of, if not all of the game, or at least starts with whatever other, in quotes, air quotes here, starters may be available for that game. We might not see Trubisky at all. Really depends on how he plays. And I'm kind of starting to gather, the SNR folks are saying this as well, Brian, that if Mitchell Trubisky doesn't come out and really wow you, and I've been having some arguments with some folks on this. He had 2 drives last week. One was a scoring drive to a wide open Gunnar Olszewski, and of course we were talking about, again, not dumping on him. He made that play, had to roll to the right. It took some time. Everybody went with Pickens. Go back and listen to some of the other episodes. I don't want to be a broken record on it, but if he doesn't come out and wow in this game, and Kenny still ascends, and then Kenny goes out next week and knocks one out of the park, this might go against my mantra of where I thought there wasn't a snowball's chance in hell that Mike Tomlin would not start a veteran quarterback week 1. And now I'm starting to think this might not be the case anymore.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing I said before camp ever started. If he earns the job, they'll start him. If he doesn't, they won't. And that just fits in with what you're saying. If Trubisky is not performing at the level that would deem him to be the starter, and Kenny is, then Kenny will be the starter. I know we're discounting Mason in all of this, and I still think there's at least a reasonable chance he could get traded, but we'll see.
You know what? I want to address that right away, and I'm going to say this much. It's already come out that Andrew Filippone spoke to a former NFL GM who thinks, keyword here, thinks, former, a guy that's not currently employed in the NFL whatsoever. That means that person is speaking with other people who may or may not be employed that are also thinking and speculating that the Detroit Lions would make a move for Mason Rudolph. Okay, so I don't know that the Lions depth chart or who they have behind Jared Goff. That could be plausible to some degree. But then folks started to throw out the Jets or the Seattle Seahawks. Those teams, I don't think, they're not interested. Zach Wilson's not going to be gone. The Jets have Joe Flacco, and the Seahawks have a 2-way quarterback battle that they're not throwing a third guy into. That Rudolph, if he went there, probably he would not only not even start, he probably never sees the field this season. No. It's just no different than what he is right here. And there was a video that already dropped from Pony too. Now Pony's been picking on this guy for a long time, and he wants Pickett. Pickett's his chosen guy. He wants him to play, And he dropped a video, and somebody's asking him, and Mason's holding back a little bit and saying the right things, but you get the sense of, he's disappointed at the opportunities. He can't control what's happening.
Right.
Yeah, it's out of his control. And it's something I just had somebody, and if you happen to listen to the show, Twitter person, Not necessarily unnerved by you. It's just the general narrative of, well, Mason sucks and he shouldn't be on this team and good luck to wherever he goes next. And that's not exactly where I'm at. I would rather have a competent quarterback there than what some of these quarterback situations are around the NFL. You can't tell me if Joe Burrow goes down that the Bengals can maybe still maintain a 500 record with, Brad Allen or whoever the heck they have sitting there on their depth chart. I would much rather have Mason still in the building, but everybody just wants to throw Kenny immediately, at least into the backup role and play Mitch Trubisky. And I've said all along, the contract for Mitchell Trubisky, that doesn't scream starter money. That screams competent veteran backup break glass in case of emergency, like a Charlie Batch, like a Byron Leftwich type, like a Michael Vick type.
I get what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
So keep Mason. You don't have to ship him away, and I don't see that many teams that are just going to reach out and grab a guy that could otherwise be released, or they could just sit on and wait until next year to get.
This is my take from the beginning of the season, and I'm keeping it. Has nothing to do with Filipponi. I've muted him on Twitter because his takes are stupid and I don't listen to him anymore. And I have had absolutely.
Hold on that one. I have too, but everyone else retweets him, and then I see it. I can't avoid it.
In this instance, that was the good thing about being on a mountain is I almost paid no attention to Twitter other than to post one picture of me sitting at 10,000 feet on the top of South Sister in Oregon saying, "Where'd you eat lunch today?" And right, that's been my exposure to Twitter over the past 10 days. So I don't really know what the rumors are. This is just my personal take that there's a chance he can get traded. I'm not saying he will, and I agree with you. I've never said that Mason Rudolph sucks. I've said he's a backup quarterback, and I maintain that. I don't believe he's a starter. I maintain he's a solid backup. I don't know whether they keep him or don't keep him. And while I think Trubisky's contract absolutely is where it is because that's what he was last year, they aren't going to pay a guy who hasn't been a starter in the last season, didn't prove that he was a competent starter in Chicago, starter money to come here, right? What they're doing is saying, we'll give you a contract that's reasonable and we'll give you the chance. Fine. If he earns the chance to start, then he gets it. If he doesn't and Kenny does, then Kenny gets it. If neither one of those two guys do and Mason gets it, then Mason gets it. I've said all along, whoever earns it in camp is going to get it.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like he said it himself. He hasn't done anything necessarily wrong, which is the reason why I was against all the booing. And Mitchell Trubisky hasn't really done anything wrong. Neither of them done anything wrong. But then again, I know I'm a big stats guy, and I'm also sometimes I come out with the eyeball test thing. And Kenny was impressive for having not run any 2-minute drills in camp, and now he has, and now he ran one with the first team too. Which really tells me he may get in there with a few guys that are like flirting with starter status on Saturday, which, by the way, Saturday, 7 p.m. at the Jacksonville Jaguars, TIAA Bank Stadium, whatever it is. What is it, 7 o'clock Eastern? I was just saying. Natural grass playing surface, not a national TV game. So, folks, if you're listening to this, you're going to have to find NFL Plus on a trial, or if you're already paying for it, they do the preseason games live there, not the regular season, or you catch the replay of it on NFL Network or something like that. But unless you're in one of the broadcast areas, and you can check it out on steelcityunderground.com, we'll have that information up on the website before the game, obviously. I think we might drop that on Friday, actually. And you'll see all of the different local and regional broadcast areas, because some of them are a mixed bag. My hometown of Youngstown, Ohio, for example, in Northeast Ohio, is typically a Browns region, and they're going to carry and cover all of the Cleveland Browns games. But in this particular instance, they do have the Steelers game because there isn't a conflict of interest with television rights and whatnot. So anyways, Jacksonville Jaguars, I don't know if that's necessarily the biggest test, but they have played. Brian, what is going on there? You got a UFO landing or what?
Oh, I'm busy. What can I tell you? I got people who want my attention.
I know. And you know what's funny is when I'm watching you over there, I could see all the reflections of, like, you've got like almost like a spaceship. I think the alien thing is kind of a good description. You could see all the reflections of all of this dude's screens. He's got like 7 monitors and laptops and everything else sitting around there as he stares into space. I've got you up on there. we could see you, man. So but anyways,
not my fault. I'm multitasking. It's all I can do. My life is multitasking.
And we want to give the people the content. People have been asking for you. You know what I mean?
I'm on a mountain taking phone calls. That's how much I'm multitasking. So
no, but I heard that bong and I'm like, I don't even know what that is. Like sometimes, it's like the Windows thing. It's like something just crashed or whatever. Anyways, the Jaguars, new coach, Doug Peterson, and the dumpster fire that was Urban Meyer, last year, and he left that team in pretty much shambles. So we'll see. I know there's some players that are listed on this depth chart. I don't think I saw all of the various injuries, but we'll see who's playing at quarterback there. I think James Robinson, one of the running backs, is not available for this game. I think he's still coming back from like an Achilles or something of that nature. They have Trevor Lawrence, CJ Beathard, and EJ Perry on their current depth chart with the 3 quarterbacks. So that's who you're going to see. Some maybe familiar faces from around the league. Evan Ingram signed there, I think, in the offseason as a tight end, formerly of the New York Giants. Oh, let's see. Wide receivers, Christian Kirk, who started all of this nonsense with the wide receiver contracts, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones. And I saw some of these players play. Some did, some didn't last week. If you can, avoid the Jaguars feed because they had no clue who the players' names were. Although I can't really say the same is true with the Steelers broadcast too. There's a few that get butchered from time to time, but there will be some names and numbers that you aren't familiar with seeing. You will see Trayvon Walker, Devin Lloyd, some of the rookies more than likely will play on the Jaguars defense. And I don't know, it's like the Jaguars. So when you see a Mitchell Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and or Kenny Pickett out there on the field against this Jaguars team, and a Jaguars team that got to play in the Hall of Fame game this year in Canton, so they got that extra game. This is going to be their 3rd of 4 preseason games, whereas the Steelers only have 3. How much can you evaluate the talent level of a team? Like, you get where I'm saying. Like, even if it's not the Jaguars starters and you have more of the Steelers starters or some mix in the quarterback play, how much like stock can we put into this? We always say preseason game, but then it's like the Jaguars, who were clearly like probably the worst team of football last year, and then maybe their backups and trying to repair that. How much does that kind of sway you? Are you going to say, well, Kenny did this against 2s, but the Jaguars 2s are more like grocery baggers that won't be in the league if they're on another roster?
Look, I mean, you have to take all of that into account, the level of talent that they're playing against. But at the same time, it's more relevant if they stink. Right? You sort of expect them to play at least minimally well. And even if they don't blow them out of the water, I mean, these are still NFL caliber players to a certain extent. Whether they would be backup players or whether they wouldn't, they got the chance to get on the field. So they're still essentially NFL caliber players. But, what we're really talking about is, if you get outclassed by those guys, that's a bad sign. If you don't get outclassed and you at least are competent, I can take that as a, equivocation and a win, basically. If you blow them away, hey, it's great. If you look like you're dominant against them, that's what you should look like.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily expect that of Kenny right now, right? It doesn't mean he can't do it. It's like it's an unfair elevation, and I want to speak to this directly anyway. We're all shiny new toy. Everybody is always shiny new toy. And Kenny is the shiny new toy. He's your 1st-round quarterback pick. Everybody's just like, nope, that's it. Everybody's not Ben Roethlisberger in first year. Everybody's not Trevor Lawrence or Joe Burrow first year, right? You can't always assume just throwing them in there, that's the best thing to do. It's usually not. So
no, not at all.
I don't expect Kenny Pickett to necessarily be a polished NFL quarterback right now. There is nothing wrong with letting him learn for a little bit. And the necessity of the fan base to say, that's got to be the guy who starts, otherwise the 1st-round pick was wasted, that's nonsense. You won't know whether the first round pick was wasted until several years down the road, whether we find out, does he get a second contract? Has he done anything at all? Then we're kind of going to know. But right now, you're not going to know. He deserves the chance to mature into the role. It doesn't mean he can't do it. I'm just saying, don't put your expectation at that level, right? Because you're setting yourself up to be disappointed.
No, you hit the nail on the head with that, and I've said that all along. We've had Ben Roethlisberger's statistics, and I think I'm going to pull them up right now from when he was a rookie. Not even just a rookie. Ben's first few seasons in the NFL, kind of like where Josh Allen has come along right now. You know what I mean? And then you have Patrick Mahomes, who different breed of animal, different beast. Did sit his rookie year, didn't play. Andy Reid didn't use him right away. But when you take a look at Ben's statistics, and I have them, we'll see if we can get. Of course, every single time I gotta have advertisements in the way, man. Why not? See if we could redo this. And we've got, let's see, 2004 Ben to 2006 Ben, before he was considered like a Pro Bowl type guy or playing at all-pro level, before he wins a second ring. He has 40 starts, over 1,000 attempts, 62.4 completed. That's excellent. 8,519 yards. That's pretty solid too. 52 touchdowns, the 43 interceptions. That's not exactly that doesn't strike me as excellent there. And in fact, Mitchell Trubisky has a little bit better numbers in that TD to interception ratio. And of course, Ben got sacked 99 times over that course. He was getting sacked like almost 1 in every 10 dropbacks back then too. So turning the ball over,
been a gunslinger, right? He takes risks because he had ultimate confidence in his arm. He had confidence that the guys he was throwing to, he was going to give them a chance to make a play. He took more risks than the normal quarterback would. That was his style of play from this get-go. It's the whole concept of Big Ben's hard to bring down and playground ball and all that stuff that everybody knows he did, but that he did at a level that we hadn't seen people ever do before, when he was in those younger years. So yeah, you just have to accept those kind of things from him. What I'm saying is, despite that kind of number, Ben came in and just did things that normally a rookie quarterback doesn't do. Yeah, he had bad games, but he also had games where you're like, whoa, what the hell happened here? How did that guy get this good?
Yeah, that's very true as well. And it takes time. So that's what I'm kind of saying is we've got the topic of who's on the hot seat, because this is the game I think that makes or breaks a lot of careers here. And we've already started. We've been talking quarterbacks. How much of a hot seat does, obviously Mason Rudolph, everybody has the hot seat on, but I don't think Mason has as hot of a seat unless there's some type of trade bait here. It doesn't appear that he has a path to become the starter unless there's an injury and unless they just don't want to play Pickett. So I don't think he has the hottest seat. And I don't know that necessarily the Steelers are going to look to ship him. Like, what value are they going to get from that?
I don't think they are going to go actively seek a trade. Yeah. If one comes to them. And that's the thing is, as the preseason progresses and these games get played, as people get hurt, which they will, there's a chance that somebody could find themselves in a circumstance where they need a quarterback and they reach out. That's when I think there's a chance Mason could get traded. I don't think the Steelers are going to seek a trade for him, because what are you going to get? And unless there's a need out there, what are you going to get for him? If there's no need, you can't you can't force a need. But if a need arises and there is a team that suddenly finds themselves in a position where they are in desperate need of either a solid quality backup or even a potential stopgap starter until their starter returns, then the Steelers might get a call. In which case, they're in the driver's seat to a certain extent, and they can start making ridiculous demands. Not first rounders, but something higher than the third rounder they drafted him with.
I don't think they're going to get higher than original round value for him anyways. And
I doubt
I mean, if they did, I think I pull that trigger, obviously.
Wait a minute.
I mean, this is
You get a second rounder for Mason Rudolph?
Oh yeah.
Bye.
It's like, the Patriots trading for Mohamed Sanu that one year for a second rounder. I'm like, it's not equitable. It's really not. And depending on what team is trading too, that could be like a top 50 pick, Brian. I mean, that's hard to like turn away from for a guy. You get him off your books. He's only under contract for that 1 year, and you've got two quarterbacks that you believe can still do the job in your stable. And that's where I was going to say Mitchell Trubisky. How hot of a seat is Mitch on? I think Mitch is probably on the hottest seat of them all. They drafted a Kenny Pickett in the first round to be the future. And if you don't play, those incentives don't realize, and you're making like, you got a lower cap hit than Rudolph this year overall. Like even the average per year isn't much. He's only going to get like 2.3, 2.5 mil next season, and they can cut him off the books for and save $8 million. That leaves the Steelers without a viable backup if Pickett were the starter next season too. But they're not going to pay Mitchell Trubisky like $8 to $10 million as a backup quarterback either next season. So just looking ahead at that, I still think there's somewhere where Mason Rudolph could still fit into this equation. It all depends. But like you said, if it's an offer you can't be refused, who's to say they don't trade him away and he comes back like a boomerang like Josh Dobbs did the year before too? That's very highly likely as well. Doesn't fit in the other team's plans. They end up cutting him. So there's a number of things here that are considerations from the business side of football. Chris Oladokun, don't see any chance. He might get, people are like, oh, will he get to play this week? No, I don't think so. Not at all. Next game, possibly. He got his first team snaps like ever in all of training camp. They've been out there for 20 some days or whatever it is. Dude, just he's looking at, now that's a next year thing too. That's a practice squad type deal where you need him to emulate the Deshaun Watsons, the Lamar Jacksons, Josh Allen, and everybody else, Tua Tagovailoa, and everybody else that they're playing this season. The mobile quarterbacks, the scout teams. That's where Chris O comes into this equation. Chris O is not. There's still people who haven't been paying attention to that. We're preaching to the choir because our 2%ers know better on this too already. So that's as far as the hot seats with the quarterbacks. I don't see them getting rid of Mitchell Trubisky this year necessarily either, but that could be a next year thing. And I still think Mitch is penciled in as the week one starter, but I do think that leash is getting a little bit shorter as we inch closer and closer. Now, if Kenny goes out and just flops and shows that he hasn't got the goods, what's the narrative? He went out and really impressed that final drive. That final drive almost didn't happen. He was sacked twice in each of the last two series. The one, he was backed up to the goal line. The other one was the fourth down call, which wasn't our, maybe the best thing to call for him there, but they tried it. He's mobile. They were gutsy. Tomlin's letting him execute 2-point conversions and really playing up to the home crowd. So we'll see if we got the same feel for that when you're away, when you're playing what should be an inferior opponent, and see what you could do against maybe ones and or twos that are out there in Jacksonville. Now, let's flip over to the running backs, because I'm tired of talking quarterbacks. It's been like 30 minutes of quarterbacks and climbing mountains and whatever else we were talking about. The running back situation, I think, is dire for Benny Snell. Benny Snell offers you special teams. Okay, you got to start thinking special teams when you're talking about backups. Anthony McFarland plays special teams. Could Jaylen Warren play special teams? We'll find out. Master Teague, some people were upset he got hurt. I'm not sure the extent. I didn't see the extent of his injury, unfortunately, but I just know that he was out. And I didn't see anything that said it was like season ending like Anthony Miller, who Anthony Miller should have made this squad. I think he had the inroads to being on the 53, and they may have kept 6 wide receivers, and we'll get into that in a second. So Benny Snell, come on down. All the running backs showed that they could do something against Seattle. You're going to have to show something, or you're in the end of a contract year on a rookie deal. There's no guarantee that he stays in that spot. If he goes out there and has like a 2 yards per carry or something and gets 5-6 carries, that's not looking very good for his situation and his path to a spot on the 53-man roster.
Yeah, look, I think it isn't like a surprise to me that Benny Snell is on the outside looking in at this point, right? we had from the day he was drafted, there was comment that, he's a little slow. Is he going to be able to? Does he have the burst we want? Is he going to be able to consistently provide backup quality? And at times he's done well, and at times he hasn't. Right, but he hasn't made progress in the seasons that he's been there. In fact, I think you could argue that he's regressed in those seasons. So if you've got a better alternative, and Benny Snell it's a hard case to make Benny Snell be the guy that sticks just because you drafted him. Well, you probably drafted some of these other guys too. I know that we got a couple guys who are undrafted, pickups that are performing well, but you're not talking about a guy who's going to contribute a ton, right? So the question is, if you think that they can actually spell Najee and give you quality reps as a running back and give you special teams, that's going to be, I think, the ticket.
Absolutely. Got to be special teams. We're going to be mentioning that a lot. And I already mentioned a potential of 6 wide receivers. There's a lot of folks who are higher on Miles Boykin now, and even Steve Sims. I get he had an impressive preseason game. How many times have we seen impressive wide receiver performances in a preseason game amount to nothing, not even a hill of beans, like absolutely zero, and you don't even, that player doesn't even end up being on the final roster? And I know Flash had said some of them, like, what was it, Shackham Phillips, Damone Patterson, Deontay Spencer, who I didn't get to mention, who was a special teams guy. He was a return specialist, and actually he had a pretty good return. Maybe even took one into to the house in a preseason game. But again, and he's a free agent now. He did actually carve out a niche over with the Denver Broncos for a couple years after he left the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I find myself like really, really, really questioning some of the wide receivers and whether or not the Steelers would keep more than maybe 5 of them on the roster. I mean, you've got Deontay Johnson just signed a huge contract. Chase Claypool, who has been off and on not healthy. And I get sick of people dragging him too. And I hear what the SNR guys were saying. And they had said their opinion of Claypool was, here's a guy that when you look at George Pickens, this is what you thought Claypool was going to be. And I think that's a little unfair because I think Claypool hasn't been bad. We've mentioned it enough times where we've said his season was pretty much the same with the exception of the touchdowns. He didn't have the large amount of touchdowns. Both of the rookies, Pickens is obviously looking like he's on a path to superstardom. I hate to say that this early, having not played one NFL snap. Let's see him catch balls in the regular season because Jamar Chase was the exact inverse last preseason with the Cincinnati Bengals. Kelvin Austin, if healthy, he's going to be on that roster. And Gunnar Olszewski has actually been a very decent option as an extra wide receiver, probably more so than even Ray McCloud. And I hate saying that because Ray actually really surprised me last season, but Gunnar also offers more with the special teams, and there's your 5. So where does that fit Miles Boykin? Miles Boykin's got something a lot of those other guys don't have, and that's the size. That's the height. He's 6'4", 6'5". He could be a target. Catches the ball, as everyone was saying, with his hands, not with his body, but that's both a good and a bad thing too, because I've seen him make some drops. He's got to be more consistent. Tyler Vaughns, I think, is a practice squad guy. Steve Sims did some nice things on special teams, did some nice things and round, stuff like that. Is that worthy of a 53-man spot when you can call some extra players up now, given some of the flexibility rules with practice squad? Probably not. He's probably more of a practice squad guy. So there's my thoughts on the wide receivers. Don't know if you got something to add to that, if I left some meat on the bone for you.
Let me just add this little bit. Whoever it was that said they think George Pickens is who they thought Chase Claypool would be is not paying any attention. That's not who they thought Chase Claypool would be. They thought Chase Claypool could be a receiver that is a game changer to a certain extent, could be a guy who could stretch the field, but nobody ever thought Chase Claypool was going to leave people in the dust or the dirt, right? It was combat catches that we thought he would be effective against. And, he has been inconsistent. And that is fair to say. but I think he also has been placed in positions where he had to, he didn't have a real, dynamic opposite numbers. Sometimes when Deontay wasn't playing well, or if Deontay was hurt, or if Chase was hurt, we never had the full group. Now, George Pickens is a different creature, okay? Just a different grade of receiver altogether. The fact that they got him where they got him,
oh yeah,
down the road is going to be like the steal of the century, I think.
DK Metcalf-ish.
Yeah, he is just not. He is a first round caliber receiver that can absolutely alter games. He can be uncoverable at times. And as he matures and learns, he will be your number one wide receiver. I have no question in my mind that that's how that's going to end up working out at some point. Right now, that's going to stay Deontay. But it's going to change. Unless he regresses, that is going to change. And Chase is going to find himself as being a slot guy or a third receiver. And I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with what I think what they're trying to say is that the whole Mapletron thing, there was higher maybe expectation there, but there were folks there were NFL executives rumored that thought Chase Claypool should be maybe changing to tight end because of his size. And so you got to consider that too.
I love Chase. Don't get me wrong. I loved him from the beginning. I think he can be a dominant guy. What he has shown me, though, over the last couple seasons is that he still needs to develop consistency, right? And avoid doing some of the things that we have seen him do, which is give up on plays, not necessarily always put best effort or 100% effort into doing whatever he's doing, get closer and more refined in his routes, get better at just attacking the ball as opposed to just reacting. If he does all those things, I think he can be very dominant in whatever role he is in. But I'm still high on Chase. Not as high as I am on George Pickens right now, but I'm still high on Chase.
Yeah, and like I said, some of the other guys, bottom roster, Steve Sims looks more like practice squad fodder.
This is a tough room to break.
Yeah,
right.
Always
Everybody's
has
battling
been, right?
for the number 4 and number 5 spots, and
I don't even know that there were spots. It's like battling for 6. And I made a comment that last week before Anthony Miller went on IR that Steve Sims wouldn't even be maybe my 9, my wide receiver 9. I had that many. I had Boykin in front of him. I think I may even had Vaughn's ahead of him at that point before that game. Pretty crazy stuff too. Offensive line, Brian, the sexy guys. Kendrick Green, because of his availability now, gets to slide in at left guard and hopefully doesn't get put on his posterior in this game, playing alongside Dan Moore. These two could come back to really bite us in said posterior if they don't get their stuff together. Got to see a little bit better because like Dan Moore gave pathway to both Trubisky and Rudolph in that same game against the Seahawks last week. They'll have Jared Allen. I said Trayvon Walker. They could be out there and make either of these guys really eat their lunch. We'll see what happens with the rest of this offensive line. Kevin Dotson's got to get it together, or his seat's getting warm too. It's not that he's going to be off the team, I think, but he's going to find himself out of that number 1 spot on the depth chart, and that's about all I've got for the folks on the offensive line. James Daniels, Mason Cole, Chuks Okorafor, they're not going anywhere right now.
That's the solid side of the line that is in no danger. Dotson and Green is I think both of those guys' butts are warm. They're just warm because both of them have different problems, right? Kendrick Green simply has to prove he can play in the NFL. Where that position is, he's got to prove that he can be able to handle it. And thus far, I don't know that he's shown that, but we'll see. He still has time, right? Dan Moore has shown flashes of being good and has shown flashes of being bad. It's not really that surprising for a guy picked where he was and still developing. But he needs to step it up as well. That's the question has always been, I said it again from the beginning, if they fix the offensive line, I don't care who the quarterback is right now, with the weapons around them and the right play calling, they'll be successful. If they didn't fix the offensive line, they're screwed.
I hope not. I hope not. I hope I don't have any more bad vibes about that. Some are going to get through, like we say. The other side's also paying players money
Can't stop
to
them
play
all the
a
time.
game. Yeah, they're
Can't stop them all the time.
all 22 people on the field are professional football players of some various degrees there. Speaking of, you flip to the defensive line and might actually get to see Larry Ogunjobi, might get to see Tyson Alualu. I was thinking Alualu's seat could be getting a little warm too, because how many defensive linemen do they keep? And last year, I think they kept 8, actually. So a little more than usual, but I think both of the Davis brothers have a warmer seat. Larry O isn't going anywhere. Cameron Hayward isn't going anywhere. Chris Wormley isn't going anywhere. And obviously the rookie DeMarvin Leal isn't going anywhere. I doubt Isaiah Loudermilk, who they moved up in last year's draft to go get, is going anywhere. So really it's like the guys like the Mondos and the Davis brothers that might be on the outside looking in on a pretty stacked, pretty deep depth chart. Montravius Adams as well. Going to see, was he really what I thought? Did he look that much better just because of everyone else who didn't look good last year? And does 35-year-old Tyson Alualu bounce back from injury and able to play at the level that he once did? Or is he somebody that's kind of, would he be there in a reserve role, or would they just cut bait with him entirely? So I think that's also important to see going forward as far as the hot seats on the defensive line.
Yeah, I don't know about Tyson, to be honest with you. Recovering from an injury, I don't think he's at risk of being cut. I don't think his butt is hot unless he stinks, right? Or doesn't show that he's recovered fully, or regresses heavily in some way. I think I'm more excited about Larry Ogunjobi than I thought I would be, because I just, like, if he can stay healthy and if everything is good, all of a sudden that is a different caliber of player on the other side of Cam Hayward, on the other side of the line. And you put him next to TJ, you put Cam on the other side with Alex. I don't care how good your offensive line is, they're going to be under siege.
Yeah.
So that to me is impressive, and I can live with some issues with that last position, whoever's playing. If somebody's playing in base and they're playing in the middle, if not, that forefront I think is a solid front, right? Which is what they're going to be in more times than not. And that, to me, that means Tyson probably takes more of the backup role that he had initially, as opposed to being a starter, and that's probably okay. Because as a backup, he is quality, solid depth. It allows the draft pick to develop. We'll see. But again, it's all about availability. I mean, if any of them are hurt, that changes everything.
Yeah, it really does. I do want to see what Larry O is capable of doing. And of course, not having any of those dudes out there just last week, I think affects the way the eyeball test goes with Devin Bush. I don't think, like a lot of people think, that his hot seat would mean off the team, but his hot seat could be reduced role for certain. Miles Jack is there to be a 3-down backer and is more than likely capable of doing so. I know there's always people that are saying, well, you know what, his tape in Jacksonville was terrible last year and blah, blah, blah. It's like he's a whole different breed of player who's now going to be a 7-year veteran at 26, going on 27 years of age. That's incredible. And he could still be the steal of free agency, especially for, what was it, like $8 million or whatever. They got him cheaper than what they were paying Joe Schobert, which just, it still blows my mind to this day. So Jack made a couple plays, back-to-back Jacks, actually, as I said on that preseason game. And then you didn't have Devin necessarily. People were picking his games apart, picking every play of his apart. And I almost find it as distasteful as like some of the Mason stuff, pick every play apart. I raised the hypothetical as someone, if Kenny Pickett doesn't get the ball back, He probably doesn't impress me as much as I've been talking about with that basically 2-minute drill game-winning drive.
Yep.
He goes down with 2 sacks in each of the last 2 series. It doesn't look as impressive. Yeah, he had 1 touchdown drive, but it was like, okay, now you can start saving, even though they're designed plays, dump offs to the running backs, et cetera, et cetera. The same thing's true for Devin Bush. Devin Bush has the guys that are playing in front of him that aren't the starters, and that can make a world of difference as well. But he's got to willfully want some form of contact, and that was the thing that bothered me maybe the most, is just playing scared. Maybe, like I said, they're parallel with maybe Rudolph, and I think Rudolph, they had that 3-game win streak. Maybe he did play scared after a concussion a little bit. That much I think is fair to say. I also think the Steelers handcuffed him big time and didn't want to see him get hurt again too. They weren't going to just let everything loose. Whereas Devin Bush, hey, you're a year away from this injury now. You got to do your thing. Robert Spillane doesn't necessarily give me the utmost confidence of putting him in as a starter also, but does any of that really matter? Oh, look at the other linebacker depth. Go get Roquan Smith. Yeah, that would be great. Except you're already paying 2 guys handsomely on this defense with TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't know you could do that, give up draft picks. People are talking about giving up a first-round pick. You don't give up a first-round pick for a guy that's in the final year of his contract, rookie contract, 5th year option, whatever. That's just that's ridiculous.
No.
You're not going to do that either. But you're also not. What do you do with Devin Bush now? You're paying him to just sit around, or do you really feel that maybe he turns the corner and he could be a contributor? I don't know. But his seat is definitely warm, Brian.
There's no question. Devin Bush is probably the hottest butt on the team, to be honest, if other than maybe Kendrick Green. But I think Devin is hotter. Look, he's in the final year of the rookie deal. They didn't extend him. They didn't exercise the 5th-year option. They're basically saying, show us you can be the guy you were in your rookie season before you got hurt. If you can't be that guy, thank you very much for your service. Have a nice career. That's the way it looks as of right now. We'll let you go ahead and test the market. And if nobody wants you, maybe we'll take you back, but maybe we won't. It's up to him, right? Either he bounces back fully from the injury or he doesn't. And I can't, you can't make predictions on that. The thing is, that kind of stuff gets into a player's head. And even when they don't think they're favoring the pre-injured thing, they still are. Even when they don't think or are still trying to think that they're going full speed, they may be hesitating because subconsciously they're still worried about the injury. You just don't know how it's impacting that player, right? And we aren't until we start to really see actual game footage, that is not preseason games.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Just you got to put it out there. Buddy Johnson, Mark Robinson. We'll see if Mark Robinson was 5th round, 6th round pick. Usually that 6th round pick is a coin flip as to whether or not they stick to the roster. And he's only been playing the linebacker position for a year for college, so wouldn't surprise me whatsoever if the Steelers go another direction, somebody else gets cut from another team or something like that. I think the edge depth is also a little suspect. But again, people freak out about this. You got to remember that most of the depth comes from drafting. And then those are rookie or 2nd or 3rd year players that haven't had an opportunity to play yet. The last few draft classes have all had an opportunity to play. They've been contributing big time. Yep. So that's why the depth may be lacking there, and you have to have a Derek Tuska that was a 7th round pick released from a different team the year before, or Jannard Avery, who's bounced around the league, Cleveland Browns, Philadelphia Eagles, and whatnot, and just trying to make it stick. I think they even tried him as an inside linebacker also, because just based on the way he was situated with the 4-3, I know they tried that, and I think he's back to being an edge guy specifically now. He can't have an all-star at every position starting, let alone backups. It just doesn't work that way. So that's the Steelers may use more defensive backs in that situation, not necessarily corners. I think at the top 3, I think they're solid enough. Cam Sutton, Levi Wallace, Ahkello Witherspoon, Justin Lane, and James Pierre are still there. And we'll see how that kind of works out, too. I'm not so hot on either of those guys. I think Lane has shown a little bit more of at least some progression, but the clock is ticking. Time is not on his side whatsoever, where Pierre was a camp phenom, undrafted guy, got to be burnt toast at times last season, got benched, and could be all the way out. Both of them are special teamers. You have what going back to that wide receiver point, Miles Boykin, maybe not so much special teamers. I know they're trying him, but I don't think that's ever been his game. So I forgot to throw that in earlier. Then safety-wise, well, Arthur Millette. I got to throw Arthur Millette. He's kind of the nickel corner, dime backer type, played safety when he was with the Jets, a little more versatile. Miles Killebrew has been hurt throughout camp, throughout practices. Might make the 53, and then it's something where they have to adjust if they think they're going to call him back from IR, because remember, they have to make the 53 in order to be eligible to come back, that's something that happened. I had to keep reminding everyone that Josh Dobbs couldn't come back last year. He was put on that injured reserve and did not make the 53. Got to make the 53 first. That was the difference with Stephon Tuitt, and waiting to see if he was ever going to return last season as well. So they had a lot of options here. So that means like Carl Joseph, unfortunately, who was probably working his way to a spot as well. Just he got hurt. He's on injured reserve. He's gone for the season. And that unfortunately, but fortunately, maybe opens the door for somebody else who may have been released otherwise. I don't think necessarily that Trey Norwood was going to be a release candidate, but he was somebody who, 7th round pick, somebody that might have been on the bottom half of the roster and may have had struggles being able to come back from that. So let me collect my thoughts here, but may have been on the practice squad because let's face it, guys, former 7th round pick. Maybe it's somebody that goes through the waiver process that somebody else isn't going to pick up necessarily, and then the Steelers have an opportunity to bring him back and then have him available if something else happens. So Minka obviously is good. Edmonds is got his spot. Casey's got his spot. And as we were surmising, well, this whole thing happened in the offseason, they put these names pen to paper on contracts, all three of them on the field at the same time. That may supersede the need to have Bush or Spillane out there as well. Yep. Quasi-hybrid linebacker type of deal. So who's on the hot seat as far as the guys in the secondary? Probably just James Pierre. I'm missing somebody. Who did I miss as far as the safeties here? Let's see. Edmonds, Casey, Norwood, Fitzpatrick. Yeah, Killebrew's been kind of beat up. There's Lyndon Stevens, Donovan Steiner, Carlins Patel. Maybe those are practice squad candidates at best.
Yeah, I don't have anything really to add there. I think that's true. James Pierre is probably the biggest at-risk individual of not even being practice squad, right? Just being a guy that has to be cut.
Sounds good to me. And the specialist, Presley Harvin's hitting some bangers now in practice. Hang time, distance, directional. Nice. I wish I was there to see it because I didn't see that consistency when I was out there. But if that's what he's got, the not-so-fat punter anymore, Brian, he's dropped some weight, 40 pounds.
Did he slim down?
40 pounds, reportedly.
Oh, my goodness.
So he went from like 260 to 220.
Fat punter anymore. I'm very unhappy about this.
No, he's...
Go eat some damn hot dogs, man.
Out there, Kobayashi, Joey Chestnut style. He's joined the Major League Eating.
Let me just say this, though. How does it have to feel to be the second kicker in camp when Boswell gets another contract? You know you're not making this damn team. I mean, you probably knew it coming in.
I did,
but you got to be like, the hell am I here for?
I did say this on one of the shows you probably missed. I said something very similar to it, and that's Nick Skiba. And Skiba's there to put tape so he could maybe be like
absolutely.
Boswell
That's
was.
What he's there for. No doubt.
And so Boswell doesn't get hurt.
Audition.
Not a Sean Swisham situation like on the terrible turf in Canton. I guess Chicago's not so hot right now, too. We got some people perturbed. I don't know what the deal is with that. Like, are you really that cheap? Like, you got to have groundskeepers and stuff. How can you have a bad... The Steelers have Pitt play college games here. They have high school football games that get played at Acrisure Stadium. But they somehow get it to work. They don't even put Steelers like in the end zone. It just says Pittsburgh, and then they got the old school diagonal lines until like about November or so when they put it in there. If nobody's ever noticed that, I think even like the Madden football games have copied that over at some point, by the way. But yeah, the specialist, there's no hot seat for Boswell. I don't think there's any concerns with Danny Smith and company changing long snappers, and they're going to want to keep the snapper, holder, and kicker all intact there. But Skiba, he'll get it. He'll get one more crack in this game at least before he becomes the cannon fodder. Let's see, when are they making the next round of cuts? I think that's on Tuesday, and it's going to go down to 80. So they only got to get rid of 3 or 5 other players. In this case, 3 or 4 of them went to injured reserve, and then Nick Gillum, who didn't even get to play. Tomlin was not happy with that dude whatsoever from what I saw at training camp. And I hate to disparage anyone, but his snaps were off. He didn't even get to play in the preseason game. And it was like, whoa, that's something there. And then Chris Owens, we thought Chris Owens was going to show us something a little more coming from Bama. As, it was one of our priority undrafted free agents and just didn't. So the next 5, probably Skiba, somebody like that. I think we've mentioned some of the names already. They're going to keep some of these other bodies, like some of the DBs, just for the sake of protecting other players so they don't get hurt and they stay healthy for that final preseason game. So as much as people might be foaming at the mouth, cut Devin Bush, trade Mason Rudolph, those aren't the guys that are part of the 5 that are going to be going away anytime soon, unless it was like some offer you can't refuse. And I love how people do this too. Go get Roquan Smith, offer him Devin Bush, and wait, pump the brakes right there. You're offering a player. You're already offering a player, but who's to say that the Chicago Bears want anything to do with Devin Bush? That they view him as any kind of priority? No, thanks, but no thanks. You know what I mean?
That's the insanity of fandom, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we can give them who we don't want, and they will absolutely want them because we want them to want them.
First round pick for Mason Rudolph, you know.
Like, I get the whole Martavis Bryant for the pick that they got for him thing when everybody was like, oh my God, that's a steal. I get that, right? But and at this point, I get we got something for crazy Antonio Brown. And people are like, well, wow. But they weren't happy with those deals when they happened, even though we were going, I can't believe they got that much. But you can't, there is no real Jedi mind trick that can be played on these other GMs to say, no, Devin Bush is the linebacker you want. And they just go, yeah, that's the linebacker I want. What do you want for him? I'll give you all my first round picks for the next 3 years plus Roquan Smith. Just please give me Devin Bush.
That would be the most amazing thing ever, to be completely honest. I haven't had you on for a while, and I wanted to show. Hold on a second. We've got Acrisure Stadium now, the lifeless, soulless look of this scoreboard, Brian. But the last time you and I were able to get on together, we weren't able to show this, and I'm going to show this. And I don't know if you would have realized, would this have been maybe the last time that we knew we were going to set foot in what was affectionately known before as Heinz Field. And I'm trying to get the photo in there, moving us around a little bit, but got the ketchup bottles a little bit there. But that was the fan blitz, and that's it. I had no idea. Well, I should have known. I had an inkling of knowing that contract was up, but it just hit so quick. And we even did with my daughter being there, that I traveled to Heinz Field signs, and those are gone now. I don't think they say Acrisure on them, but I haven't checked at the Steelers Nation Unite tents yet. I think they just traveled to yeah, I think I didn't get a chance to see, because the ones I saw last weekend were this is my first game, or, you know, something of that variety. There were the other signs that were there. It's my birthday, or whatever the heck that they got there. Hey, we're up against it, man. Good to have you back.
2 things I want to say. First of all, I'm glad I gave my preseason tickets out to the Seattle game. I'm going to give my preseason tickets out to the Lions game. But I did that last one at last second. So, because I hadn't had a chance to get on the podcast. If somebody wants my Lions games preseason tickets, DM me on Twitter. And if you want them, then you have to say that I am a grown ass man in your DM. If you say that, and you're one of the first ones that if 10 of you come in at the same time and I can't figure out who was first, then I'll randomly pick one of you. But if you want my Lions preseason tickets, tell me I'm a grown ass man in a DM, and you can have them. Secondly, because I didn't say anything about this at the beginning, I'm going to get my 2 cents in here at the end. The NFL and the whole thing with Deshaun Watson, it's all wrong. They should have thrown his ass out. Period.
I won't. I won't disagree. Yeah, and then make the Browns eat that contract too, all guaranteed. Yeah, that was the only. This is tough, and it's not something I want to get too deep into. But he sat all of last year, so I felt he was never going to get the full year. They were going to take that into consideration. He's already missed a year of football, regardless of suspension or not. But look what they did to Zeke. Like, that was before he even entered the NFL. I mean, we could go all the way back to Ben, but Zeke's more recent with one of the newer CBAs before they actually had to handle some of this stuff, you know?
Let's just use Ben as the example. All right, Ben had 2 accusers. One when he got the suspension, one that had gone away. So if let's just say 2. And he got what, 4 games? Right?
Six reduced to 4, I believe.
6 reduced to 4,
which was fewer than Michael Vick, by the way.
750,000 accusers.
Yes, it's somewhere in the ballpark, maybe 750,001.
Let's say it's 25. I don't even remember what the number is.
No, it's up to like 30. It's like up to 30 now, I think. Yeah,
so he's got 30. Fine. He should get suspended for 120 games.
I'm telling you that the only difference is it's the same thing. Like, they were suspending guys for weed like crazy. People are bringing up, of course, Kelvin Ridley and betting and being suspended a full year. And I understand that. And it seems just as nonsensical as the weed thing versus the accusations. Like I said, Michael Vick, I think Vick got reduced to 3 games, and he spent time in federal prison for crimes that he was actually charged and convicted of. And these other guys, just accusations.
Are going to hate my take on this, but this is it. Look, Ben got drunk with a drunk girl. Deshaun Watson is a freaking predator.
Wow.
I'm sorry. That's the way it looks. He's not drunk.
The perception
He's going out
of it.
and consistently seeking new massage therapists who he can then abuse one way or the other. That is a predator. That is different. It's a completely different scenario. And the fact that the NFL did not come down harder on this, I think, will always remain a blemish on them. It's dumb.
Yeah, Brian, I can't disagree with the whole saying it's a predatory act thing, seeking it out, having the team cover for you like the Texans did. I mean, that's rough. And then,
and that whole he didn't sat out the year before, that was his choice. I don't care.
Well, look at what happened with that. The Texans gave him that big contract, and then all this stuff hit the fan. And then he didn't play. They decided not to play him. They were able to draft Davis Mills, but they didn't have any picks because Bill O'Brien's an idiot. They gave the whole farm away with so many different things there. Whole other topic of discussion. But
all right, so there's my rant. I needed to get that off my chest.
No, it's a very fair take.
His ass should have been out.
I'm just looking at it from the other side, like glass half full, glass half empty, that was taken into consideration with whatever arbiters were involved in this process, and they took that as part of this. And now they've had the Ray Rice incidents, the Big Ben incidents, the Zeke, and they didn't even do anything with Joe Mixon as far as accusations or whatever he had that came up. Kareem Hunt, and all you could there's like far too many names, to be completely honest. Do I believe in second chances? Absolutely, sure. That's fine. They've done enough of this where they don't have the knee-jerk reaction that they used to, and they handle it through a certain litigious process where before it was just Goodell just throwing the book at Ben. And that's where it differs. And I'm not saying it's fair one way or the other. It's just that I can see it from both sides. The thing that I think bothers me the most of all of this, and this will be my closing point on it, maybe to never bring it up again, is Watson saying that he's sorry after he vehemently came at everybody and said, "Oh, I didn't do anything wrong." And it's like, well, which way is this, guy? Are you feeling like remorse or feeling bad, or did it happen or did it not happen? I get you could put it this way. If I was in his situation, it's got to be driving the lawyers and team reps and agents and everybody crazy that he talks about it at all. I would just be like, I'm sorry, no comment. I can't comment at this time. No comment, no comment, no comment. Just don't say anything. Like, what is wrong with you opening your yapper? You're just like, you're admitting guilt in some fashion and settling with people. And I get all of that. It doesn't necessarily mean admission of guilt. but he was the guy who said he would go through this whole process. He was looking for 0 games at one point with this. He was looking to get away scot-free. And it's disturbing behavior. I'll leave it at that. He's got enough. There's enough people that came out. You see the memes where people put a face of Bill Cosby on him in a Browns jersey. And it's the same thing that done in Bill. He got enough of it. This isn't like 1 or 2, 20, 25, 30. It starts to escalate. Are people coming for their pound of flesh, their money? Were they wronged in any way? You can make all of those different arguments. The one argument you can't make is how this looks. And it looks bad. It walks like a duck. It talks like a duck. And end of rant. Off my soapbox. Brian, thanks, man. Thanks for joining us. Giving the people
Always
what they want, what they need.
I missed being on. It's been, I get I'm busy, but, I miss being.
Hey, you got to, one of these days, we got to get in here for the old-fashioned 3-way. With Zach Flash Saladonia. I meant more like not that kind of 3-way, not like a Deshaun Watson 3-way, like the Cincinnati Skyline Chili 3-way.
Okay, I mean, I'm good with that. That's all good.
We'll do it that way. We don't want to be given. We don't want to have our the safe PG whatever rating we have on YouTube revoked.
Yeah.
But then we could talk about McDonald's, which I know you don't eat.
Correct.
But Skyline, just to pump that into your veins. And that may be just some blasphemy for some folks that are like, well, wait a minute, that's those goofy, silly Cincinnati people, Bungles fans that put chili and cheese and tons of cheese on everything. And they do. And I didn't understand it, and now I do. And I'm a fan, unfortunately. They've converted me as well.
That stuff's good.
Yeah, I know. I love when you post that. Like you posted a picture and it was like an empty sloppy plate, which, come on, folks, here's another tip for your life. We've got all kinds today. We've got all kinds of life advice, right? Take a photo of your food before you bite into it. Nobody wants to see your slobber and your dirty, nasty plates and napkins. And that'll do it for us, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow Brian. Do that. You see it right there. It's right there on the little bar
right.
there.
At Cannons Don't Fun.
Cannons Don't Fun. We still don't know what that means. We still don't know if Cannons is spelled properly, but that's just a whole other that's a whole other bottle of wax. Mine's Joe_Kuzma and all the other ones. Steel City Underground. We're underway. Preseason game, week 2. A little bit of hot seat stuff. That's what you really should be looking for. Don't be looking for final scores. Don't be the battle that really doesn't matter either is how much playing time someone gets. I don't think it said it enough with the quarterbacks. The Mason demotion, so to speak, as a QB3, I wouldn't read so much into that as the Kenny ascension to quarterback 2. Pay attention to how many reps Mitch Trubisky gets and how much quality work they feel he needs to put in this game. Because if Kenny puts in more quality work earlier in this game, I think Kenny set Stroll in as the starting quarterback for that final game. There might not be a whole lot of starters on the field with him against the Detroit Lions. And don't forget to ask Brian for his tickets and meet his ransom demands. Till next time, my name's Joe, and his name is Brian E. Roach. Don't be gone for so long next time.
I'm making no more big trips other than to Pittsburgh for the rest of the year. So
that's nice to hear. And then you could come hang and bang with me, man. So some tailgating, I know you're not the adult beverage drinker, but just bring your energy drinks and we'll get hyped up. So,
sounds good,
folks. Take it easy out there. Be safe, whether it's energy drinks or the adult beverages that you're having as well. Don't get sloshed on a Jacksonville Jaguars preseason game. Until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.